Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 231 here, back in data about Witch Watch, episode number 2. This episode is one of those episodes where it's like, hey, a bunch of things crammed all into one, so it is titled, A Giant Rookie, Let's Go to a Diner, and The Flying Classroom. I know it's a very long episode name, but it still gets the point across at the end of the day, right? But of course, Witch Watch is written by Kento Shinohara, who wrote the original manga, is produced by Bilberry Animation Studios to give us this beautiful anime that we are watching right now, and this episode covers like the tiniest bit of chapter 2 and then the entirety of chapters 3 through 5. A little bit of cut content in there, but we will of course be talking about that all when we get to the end of the video, right? So I hope all of you guys are doing good. I mean, I'm doing good. I just watched Witch Watch episode number 2, took some notes, ate some lunch, and ready to sit down in here and talk about this episode. And honestly, this episode is not as jam-packed as last episode was. Of course, it was like, hey, here's the introductions to these characters and really understanding what this entire series is about. Well, this one is like, hey, the beginning of Witch Watch is a lot of like really like joke-based comedy chapters with a few nice moments strewn in between all of this. And that is certainly what we get here. I mean, as I mentioned here, like whenever we get going through the actual episode itself, I mean, chapter 2 is referenced for all of a second, but chapters 3, 4, and 5 are all comedy-based chapters of like, hey, here Nico is using a new spell, or she's hanging out with some friends, and then Morito's got to go do some stuff, right? But either way, just a really solid episode of Witch Watch we have this week. If you guys don't know how this works, of course, I have been reading this manga for the 4 years that Witch Watch has now been out. Pretty much been reading it since day one, so I'll pretty much just be going through the anime and like giving my thoughts on it, right? Like, hey, did I like this part of it? Did I not like this part? How has the anime brought the original manga to higher heights? Really looking at the Witch Watch anime from a manga reader's perspective, right? So we'll be going through all of this various stuff, talking about the changes, talking about what I did like, what I didn't like, and all that various stuff. But yeah, really, without any further ado, I just want to talk about Witch Watch episode 2. So this episode actually starts off with what happened last episode, pretty much like, hey, last week on Witch Watch. Pretty much, if you guys did not watch the last Witch Watch video, I've got it up on the channel. Just go watch that one instead. I don't really feel like giving the recap right here, right now, if you know what I'm saying, right? But as soon as the recap's over, we get the opening theme of Witch Watch, which of course is titled Watch Me by Yoasobi. Again, just an great absolute opening. I love all the visuals that we get here, and I just love the music, and every time it's like, oh man, I spot something new right there. I remember that gag chapter of Witch Watch, just seeing how it all works out, seeing like the different art styles that are used. It is just really, really cool, and I can't wait till like we see all of the little gags that happen in the opening and see them actually happening in the anime itself. But just a really good opening of an anime, what could I say? And like I said last time, I really think that this is going to like be blowing up Witch Watch. Like, hey, did you guys hear the new Witch Watch opening? It's really good. Sort of like how the Dandadan opening did that for Dandadan. Granted, that was also just a really good series from what I heard. I have still not watched or read Dandadan. Yes, I know I'm a bad shonen manga fan, but I'm sorry, what can I say, right? But after that point, we start off on the events of Chapter 2, as there's a few rom-com aspects. Of course, Nico wakes up the next morning after spending the first night at the house, comes downstairs in her pajama and is just like, hey, Morito, what do you think of me, right? And there's just a lot of rom-com where Nico's like trying to be like, get Morito to say she's cute and all that various stuff, but it doesn't really seem like it's working, right? Well, eventually we see, yes, school is starting off, and it seems like Nico got here just in time to be able to be at the entrance ceremony for Asurano High School, right? This is actually only in the manga, but I sort of wanted to mention it because I sort of think it's important to like, hey, just so they are at Asurano Public High School, right? And we also learned that Nico and Morito are going to end up in the same class, which is a little bit of a cool thing, like the two of them just like get to hang out together and do all the shenanigans in school, right? The entrance ceremony happens, and after the fact, Nico is walking around to school seeing, like, all of her other, like, schoolmates and everything, and she just thinks, like, wow, there's a lot of couples going around here, right? Like, hey, I wonder if Morito's going to think any of that and, like, want to go out with me, pretty much, right? Eventually, Morito calls her over and just is like, hey, Nico, whatever you do, please do not tell people you are a witch whenever we get up to the classroom, right? Well, hey, we get up to the classroom, and it starts to become time for, like, hey, all of the various introductions of all of our various characters, right? We learn who the homeroom teacher is. It is Yuri Makua, and we learned that she has a main hobby of manga, and she loves to read a manga called Uran Mirage. This is a massive joke that comes up constantly throughout the series, so I will tell you, be familiar with Uran Mirage. It comes up a lot, right? Eventually we get some more introductions going around. There's a few joke characters that get brought up. It's like, hey, this guy has not ever worn sleeves in a long time, right? And one of these guys like posting online, but he's always getting flamed in the comments, right? And one of these guys also writes the comments that flame the other guy, pretty much. A little bit of some funny stuff, right? But we also get introduced to a few important characters. Kukumi Ureshino we get introduced to, and we learn that she loves the manga Uran Mirage. I wonder if that will be prevalent here in the near future of manga, right? And eventually, Nico looks over and sees that Morito is taking notes on all the classmates, just trying to be a good person, understand everything about all of these people, right? But as Morito is doing this, he actually messes up writing something and grabs out his mechanical pencil and goes to erase some things, but oh no, his eraser breaks. So Nico decides to use the spell Embiggen to make the eraser bigger so he can use it easier, right? But pretty much how you use Embiggen is you'd be like, all right, I want to Embiggen that thing, but you have to accurately point to it, right? Well, Nico really just messes up and hits Morito's hair, making him look a lot like Adult Gon from Hunter x Hunter. And no, I'm not just bringing that up. It literally gets brought up by both Nico and the main homeroom teacher of Miss Makura, right? Which is like, okay, that's a little funny. Eventually, we also just hear the name of a character named Keigo Makami. He may be important later, right? And it just continues on as Nico's like, oh no, I gotta do this differently. Hits Morito's head. Oh no, I've gotta do something else. Accidentally hits Morito's arm. Morito's introduction starts to happen, but he's got this big, beefy arm. It's like getting in the way, and he's like, man, everybody's gonna think I'm weird even because I'm trying to like hide this thing. Like, he even calls it like, calm down, Leftos, what are you doing? It's a little bit of a weird joke, but it sort of gets put across like, hey, Morito may be acting a little weird here in a moment. Eventually, another girl is introduced named Kara Minami, right? And as this is all going on, it eventually gets over to Nico's introduction, right? As she's like, oh boy, I can't wait to do all this. But she's going to cast Embiggen on Morito's arm to dispel it, but accidentally points to herself instead whenever she gets called on, and casts Embiggen on herself, and pretty much tells everybody like, hey guys, I'm a witch. Oh no, the cat got out of the bag. And that's really where we have the first part of this episode of like, hey, Morito told her to do one thing, and then Nico said, you know what, I am not going to do that actually. We now have the episode break, which I honestly really like how this episode break happens. Of course, whenever we fade out of the episode, we get this little bit of a break, where it's just the epilogue to episode 1, as it says like, hey, at the end of the day, Moi and Keltfish made up with each other, and we even see that Morito's like, hey, whatever we said, your hair actually looks pretty nice on you in this moment, right? A little bit of a nice thing. And then the second part of the break was like, hey, of course, for the second chapter, whenever both Nico and Morito were also depressed, Morito wrote a very depressing blog online, right? A little bit of a funny joke there, right? Well, as we open back up on the episode, we eventually see that Miss Makura is standing at the front of the room and just says like, oh yes, I forgot to mention this to all of you, but we have official word from Nico's mother that she actually is indeed a witch, and that she's coming here to pretty much do all of her training, so please, guys, help Nico out, right? And Morito has this little bit of a thing where he's like, oh no, I really hope Nico ends up making friends here, because I don't want her to like think like, oh no, everybody thinks that she's just so much weirder than everybody else. But eventually, as everybody else is leaving, Morito's like, hey Nico, let's go back to the house. We see that two of the girls in class, Kara and Ureshino, end up walking over to Nico and just say like, hey, you want to come and eat at a diner with us after the fact? And Nico's like, yeah, I would absolutely love to, right? Well, we see that they go and get to the diner, and there's a bunch of thugs standing outside, and they're like, hey, you girls are cool, want to come back to our places, pretty much? And we pretty much see that Kara's like, no, we're going inside. And pretty much Kara goes in with both Nico and Ureshino. And both Nico and Ureshino are like, whoa, you are so cool back there, Kara, right? But Kara's like, hey, it doesn't matter. Nico, what about you? I mean, you're a witch. That's like so crazy, is it? And Nico pretty much is just really happy about like, hey, she seems to have a lot of friends when she didn't have a lot of friends back in the day, of course, because like she was just living in a weird part of life where like she was a witch, but all the people around her were also witches, but they were either younger or older than her, so she never really had any friends her age, right? We eventually learn a little bit of Ureshino's backstory, which was the same sort of deal where, like, hey, she was always sad, she never really had many friends, but then Kara came up and acted really cool, invited her out to a diner, and they became friends, and now they're sort of just passing that on to Nico as well, right? Eventually, Kara and Ureshino ask Nico, like, hey, who's that guy you're always with, right? And like, hey, who's that hottie, pretty much? And she's like, oh, his name's Morito and all that very much. So like, hey, are you guys dating? And Nico pretty much makes Morito sound not like the best person out there, simply because she doesn't want either Kara or Ureshino actually going after Morito. At this point, we cut outside to where we see all these thugs from earlier just sort of sitting out there like, man, I really want to beat up those girls in there and we can do things to them later. okay guys, calm down, right? As eventually in a moment, Nico just explains like, oh, who's Moy? I mean, he's not really that cool. As you just cut outside to where Morito is standing on top of the diner, jumps down and just absolutely wrecks all of these guys, all of these thugs today pretty much. And eventually, Kara, Reshino, and Nico walk outside, and Nico ends up spotting Morito hiding behind a bush, and sort of just thinks to herself, like, hey, I'm sorry I said all those bad things about you, Moy, right? And Moy's just like, man, all of those girls are so harsh, right? Well, we then cut over to the next day of school, right? As we pretty much see that everybody's asking Nico, like, hey, your magic is so cool, isn't it? Like, hey, can we try some out? Like, what type of spells do you have and all this various stuff, right? And Morito is sitting in the seat beside her. It's just like, Nico, whatever you do, please, 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 for like the love of all things holy, don't get carried away with all of this. But of course, what Nico do but then just get carried away? And she's like, oh, you guys want to see a cool spell? Well, I have this spell that pretty much lets us shift gravity around us. And she uses a spell called Liberty Gravity. And pretty much as we see the teacher walks in, of course, Miss Makura walks inside the classroom, and we see that all of the students are just like, some have their desks on the ceiling, some on the wall, some on the floor still. It really looks like the Infinity Castle from Demon Slayer, which is the gag that was made here, right? But Ms. McCord is just like, what are you guys all doing, right? She even says like, all right, guys, calm down. Please no more of that stuff in class. But either way, all classes are starting today. But you guys actually have a little bit weird, being that you have recreation time for first period, right? And Kara eventually just says like, hey, well, if we don't want to play like the game of Fruits Basket or anything, how about let's just go outside and like test out some of Nico's magic? And everybody's like, yeah, let's do it. Nico, again, gets very carried away, right? As we cut to outside where we see all of the class 1-3 kids are sort of just like standing around Nico, and Nico's like, all right, guys, so I'm going to be using a spell that lets you fly inside this protective barrier. It's how witches actually learn to fly on their brooms, so you'll be able to sort of learn how to fly. And she pretty much like says, hey, if you want to turn right, go right. If you want to turn left, go left. If you want to go up, up, down, down, pretty much explaining the mechanics of it, right? And at this point, we just get a little narration saying like, hey, whenever people are experiencing great bits of magic like this, is often when their personalities shine the most. As we see all of the personalities of the various kids here in the classroom, it's like, hey, some of them want to learn the mechanics of it, right? Some of them just want to look cool in front of girls. Some of them want to act like Dragon Ball characters, right? Etc., etc., etc. Some want to sit like outside and do nothing. Oh, that's Keigo Makami who's doing that. I wonder if he's going to be important. Maybe I shouldn't be pressing it as much as a manga reader, but I'm sorry. I love Keigo, absolutely, right? But either way, we sort of go through all of this, and let me find where I was on my notes again. Yes, we get all these other introductions to all of these classmates, and I really love where at one point, one guy looks out one of his windows from one of his classes and just is like, hey, Teach, Class 1-3 is flying outside. And the teacher's like, no, they're not. You're just messing with us, right? Either way, there's this little bit of a nice moment whenever Morito walks over to where Nico is and just says like, hey, Nico, you're expending a lot of energy putting up this flying barrier, aren't you? And she's like, I am, but whenever I eat, I can help regain my magic power pretty much. So it sort of works. It's like, hey, Frankie in One Piece gets power off of drinking orange juice. Or no, that he drinks cola. It's Tenya Ida from My Hero Academia who drinks orange juice, and that's where his sort of like engine power comes from. That was the joke I was going for there, right? But Nico's like, hey, I'm just really happy that I get to come through and share my various magic with others. It just really makes me feel good, right? And she even just says like, hey, Morito, have you ever thought about telling everybody you're an ogre? And Morito just remembers the back whenever he was young, and like, of course he was playing with all of these friends, and he brutally hurt the Keltfish guy whenever they were younger. And all the other people just say like, hey, Morito, our parents told us not to be friends with you just because like they don't want us getting hurt. And Morito, we just learned like, hey, Morito didn't have, like, the best childhood life after all, right? Well, either ways, this is happening. We see a truck, a little, like, K-truck who's going around with some things on it for the football field, or the baseball field, come over and starts to drive into the barrier. And both Nico and Morito are like, oh, crap. As the truck, like, starts accelerating into the sky, the driver doesn't know it's going, but the truck starts to move out of the magic flying barrier. As it goes, it starts to nosedive towards the ground. But, of course, who has the ogre strength to save everybody but Morito? Morito comes in, saves the day, and it's like, whoa, look at that, it's awesome, right? And pretty much Morito's spirit is, Morito's secret is spilled as he just has to tell the class, like, hey, guys, I'm an ogre. Nico tries to protect him, but Morito's like, no, I need to tell them. It's something that I just need to do, right? And he's like, man, I don't think anybody will accept me. But then everybody does. You're like, oh, that's cool. We've got a witch in our class and now an ogre. That's pretty cool, if you know what I'm saying, right? It's a little bit of a nice wrap up to the episode there. As we then get the ending theme. We get to see it for the first time. And can I just say, again, it just looks absolutely amazing. I love the style that we get here, and it very much looks like the opening of the anime too, but of course it's like a lot of like slower pan shots happening back and forth in the moment. But either way, it still looks really, really awesome. And of course, we then get the next episode preview, which is really funny because it's just Nico singing like, hey, I made so many friends. Like, I'm just so happy. I've got so many friends, right? And arguably, it's a pretty terrible singing voice, all things considered, or at least how it was portrayed in the anime. I'm sure the voice actress has a very good singing voice. But pretty much we learn what the next episode will be called. It is A Fresh Transparent Fashions for Spring, Witches Delivery Service, and Lost Dogs and the Patter of Rain. And that is where we end this episode of Witch Watch Episode 2. So again, I thought there was a lot of good that happened in this episode. As far as going through the manga chapters, it almost happens exactly like it does in the manga. We go back to chapter 2 for a second to get the whole idea of like, hey, whenever they wake up, so of course being to episode 1 was just like, hey, everything happened in one day instead of chapters 1 and 2 actually being, hey, day 1 and then day 2, it was like, all right, all this happens in one day and then we're going to the next thing, right? But I really did like how episode 1 went through and sort of recontextualized all that, and I think it makes for a better series at the end of the day. But then it literally goes through. We get the entirety of chapter number 3. All of the jokes are hit, and really, I don't feel like there's any, like, dead air or anything. And granted, it is typical for manga, or for anime episodes to cover 3 regular weekly manga chapters. And then, of course, with a monthly series, you may as well cover the entire thing, or just, like, other situations other than that. But also looking at the links of the other few chapters, it really seems like Witch Watch is going to be sticking to 3 chapters each time. Because, of course, next episode has the whole idea of, like, hey, the 3 different sections of it also, right? But really, the only thing that was majorly cut in this episode was in chapter 4, whenever it's the whole thing of like, hey, going to a diner pretty much. The whole way that Kara pretty much shoves the bullies away is by recording them on her phone and like acting like she's going to post a video on social media like, hey, look at all of these thugs. She sort of just like stands up for herself in a different way there, and I honestly like how this episode portrays it better. It may just because, hey, it's colored in and it's got nice music and it sounds good pretty much, but I just do like how it's portrayed here rather than in the early stages of the manga. And then after that, chapter 5 is the whole, hey, the classroom is flying, this truck happens, Morito's secret also comes out. Overall, just a really good episode of Witch Watch Volume 2. I absolutely loved it. Again, the opening theme is still very much growing on me. Like, hey, every time I watch it, I see something new. And I feel like the ending theme, which, I don't know if I said what it was called. The ending theme is called Maho Spice by O, right? And that's, A-O-O-O-O. So A and 3 O's followed by it. But yeah, it's, ending theme, Mono Spice, or Maho Spice by O. A good enough ending. I did enjoy it, and it's also, like I said, it's gonna be one of those where it's like, hey, as time goes on and we see more of it, I'm gonna be like, oh, hey, look at that, it's a pretty cool thing that I noticed. But really good episode of Witch Watch, and I don't really know what else more there is to say to it. As a manga fan, I'm absolutely loving this adaptation, and I can't wait for it to become very massive and for people to be like, hey, Witch Watch Anime of the Year, because I just simply think that's going to be cool as a day 1 manga reader. But hey, I really hope all of you guys enjoyed this video on Witch Watch episode number 2. Again, this episode was titled A Giant Rookie, Let's Go to a Diner, and The Flying Classroom. Those were 3 sections of it. Yeah, with all of that out of the way, thank you guys so very much for watching this video on Witch Watch episode number 2. If you guys did not check out my video on Witch Watch episode 1, it'll be linked in a playlist at the not only the end card of this video, but also in the description box down below. And hey, I cover plenty of other anime and manga related content. If you want to hear my thoughts on the current chapters of the Witch Watch manga, I do a weekly Shonen Jump show where I talk about a bunch of various series in a weekly Shonen Jump, and I'll give you guys a hint. Witch Watch is one of those. So, like, if you go to one of those videos, and it's the last series I talk about just because I love talking about it so much, but yeah. Go check out all of that, and yeah, really, thank you guys so very much for watching. Again, Witch Watch by Kino Shinohara, animated by Bilberry Animation Studio. This episode covered the tiniest sliver of Chapter 2, and then the almost entirities of Chapters 3, 4, and 5. Like I said, a little bit was cut out of Chapter 4, but I think it does make the animation production a little bit better. But yeah, with all of that out of the way, thank you guys so very much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time for Witch Watch Episode 3. Again, next episode will be titled, let me flip over my notes again, Fresh Transparent Fashions for Spring, A Witch's Delivery Service, Lost Dogs, and The Patter of Rain. So I will catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma 231, signing out.